Have you ever listened to a person talk for less than a minute and known you weren't going to get along with that person? What did they say? Story 1. The parent of one of my kids' friends at school said there was a mouse in their house, and his wife wanted him to kill it. But he didn't want to eliminate any creatures. He wants to make friends with them instead. But his wife insisted. So he threw his shoe at it and eventually managed to hit it. But it wasn't dead. So he threw his shoe at it another 4 times. It still didn't die. So he poured boiling water over it again. It still wasn't dead. So he decided to leave it alone in the hopes that it would peacefully pass away. The logic of being too squeamish to kill something and instead deciding to torture it to death slowly in the most agonizingly painful way absolutely blew my mind. Story 2. Years ago, I and my ex-husband went to see a movie with an older colleague of his. Before the movie, we had dinner at like a chain restaurant steakhouse type place. Staff on the floor was all 20-ish. I never met this man before, but in the first few minutes of sitting down and looking at the menu, he very confidently told us how he came there a lot and flirted with the female staff because they loved the attention. The best part is that his daughter worked there. All I could think was how I would literally cringe myself through the floor if I was 20 and my 50-year-old dad came into my place of work and perved on my coworkers because he didn't understand that they only put up with him because they are paid to do so. This really is along completely different lines, but the line "put up with him because they are paid to do so" just reminded me of several people I know. I think that such people can absolutely be in no way pervy or anything. However, they might have a tendency of trying to make conversation with absolutely everyone. This could be especially noticeable in restaurants, where, as you say, they're paid to put up with him. Story 3. She showed up to a little get-together, and the person who invited her said that they would be taking bets on who could sit with her for more than 30 minutes. $10 per person, and the winner kept the pot. I assumed they were just being rude and planned to tell her of her friend's plans as soon as she showed up. She walked in, looked at me, scoffed, and asked if the gray car outside belonged to me, to which I responded positively. She told me that with the money that the car cost, I could have bought something nicer. Okay, well, whatever. I went to get a drink and sat to watch the crowd gather around her. I already didn't like her, but she went on to tell everyone about how she could never date someone who had a crap credit score or couldn't pay their vehicle off after buying it. Then the guy asked her for one of her cigarettes, and she said no and put them back in her purse. She talked about all the cars she apparently bought. Basically, her parents would co-sign for her and pay the car off to build her credit, and she would give them a few thousand to pay them back. She was nuts and wouldn't stop talking. I disliked her, but was also fascinated with her. She was super weird. Edit. I forgot to mention a few things about this girl and that night. There was something like 15 to 20 people there, and most entered the contest. I think the pot got up to $100 to $120. The winner was just some guy who I didn't know. He spent the money getting everyone McDonald's and beer, so he was pretty cool. She was about 22, 23. She had just finished getting her high school diploma because she had dropped out to make money. According to her, I think she sold some milkshake things and fitness plans with some MLM. For those wondering what happened to her, I'm not 100% sure, as she wasn't my friend, but she did show up to a few parties I was at, and she seemed calmer. She used to bring her own bottle of liquor and wouldn't share, which was kind of funny because on one occasion, they caught her filling her bottle with a bottle of Jack that someone had brought and left on the kitchen counter. But she swore that all she drank was Hennessy and Fireball. Story 4. The new guy at work. Super fake by being overly excited and super overly comfortable with everyone in the first minute. He's all mommy this and poppy that to everyone, and very overly touchy. We were almost all Hispanics there, and everyone was uncomfortable. First phone call of the day, he hangs up cursing and taking it super personally that someone hung up on him, a daily occurrence in customer service. After about 6 months, I put in my 2 weeks notice solely because I couldn't work next to or with him anymore. He would also get overly gossipy and personal. My boss rejected my notice and transferred him. He couldn't stand the guy either. Actually, no one could. Yeah, people who try to force best friend vibes with everyone have 100% turned out to be creeps or psychos. It's fine if people don't know each other. We don't need inside jokes on the first day. Many individuals think that if they say friendship things, they can get what they want from anyone. And that's just wrong. Just let it happen naturally as it should. Story 5. Literally last night was at a local pool comp and went to introduce myself to my second round opponent. We shake hands and his first words to me are, "Weak fuck handshake, bro." Then proceeded to talk about every aspect of my game. The worst part was he was actually good at the pool, so it just seems like he was generally a cunt. Some of his other opponents got it a lot worse than I did as well. The highlight of the night was when the comp host basically yelled in his face, "Everyone in this room hates you," which received a round of applause. He didn't seem to understand why that was. Edit. The comp consists of 90% regulars that are there every week. This was the guy's first time playing there. He knew no one except for the couple of mates he brought. I can assure people calling me a liar that he was universally hated. He ended up losing the final, which received more of a response than the host yelling at him, but yeah, LOL. I don't even know why I'm responding to this. I guess I have never had this much attention on anything I have ever shared on the internet. Story 6. A new guy started at my job, and once we were outside smoking on the first break. Keep in mind, I have never met nor spoken to this dude in my life. He walks up, lights up his cigarette, and says, "You know, I think my severe arachnophobia has transformed into arachnophilia. I've been watching a lot of Spire hentai while pleasing myself." Then he began to describe the new waifu pillow he bought, as well as her name, and his plans to marry her. I was speechless. Edit. I work in a distribution warehouse for a clothing company as a forklift driver. Man didn't last very long, but not because of the things he said. He was constantly late for work, and twice a week he'd show up in Crocs, knowing damn well I've told him 100 times he needs closed-toe shoes. I'd have to send him home to change shoes. I told him just keep a pair of shoes in his car so he has something to wear at work. Didn't work, and eventually I had to let him go for excessive tardiness and absenteeism. Reply 1. I worked with a dude that lived in our workplace restaurant parking lot in his van that was covered in hentai posters inside. Dude claimed he didn't do drugs, despite being invited to do drugs with us. I was young and am a responsible adult now. Weirdo even ate out of bus bins and stuff. But the dude showed up to work every day, washed the fuck out of some dishes, and even helped with prep work and stuff because he was so efficient. Then he'd just run out to his van until the next day. Story 7. Anything that starts with a look over both shoulders and a "since it's just us" head nod that lets you know some racist, ignorant shit is coming. I was at my sister-in-law's house at a housewarming when their new neighbor let fly right after he met me. He was trying to discreetly talk to me and his friend who was also over. I did the "I don't understand" trick, where you keep asking them to explain the joke until it's uncomfortable for everybody and starts drawing attention. Still hate that dude. Story 8. I knew I wasn't going to like her based on her actions on her first day at work. We work with dogs at a daycare and boarding place. In the morning, during feedings, one of the first things she tried to do was get meds from the med cabinet. I tell her, "No, that's the front desk. They handle medication." She just kinda nods. In my head, I'm like, not sure why you were trying to pass out meds without anyone explaining anything to you, but okay, let's move on. A few days go by, then one day she asks if she's supposed to clean the water bowls we have in the dog's suites overnight. She was already told how to clean suites, which involves cleaning the bowls every morning. I just say yes. She also asked me if she should clean the park water bowl after a dog peed in it. I again say yes. She still works here, but no one likes her since she likes to pretend she knows what she's doing and then asks questions that can be answered by having basic common sense and problem-solving skills. In my opinion, everyone's got to ask questions and work with others until they get to know the infrastructure and code base. A lot of people are the ones that scare others from asking questions and attempting to learn by trial and error. Have a little kindness, please. You were green once too. Did anyone scoop you under their wing and help you? If not, then maybe that explains something. Story 9. This is going to be tame compared to the others here, but I don't give a fuck. I will spit it out anyways. My job involves me calling people to help them with their problems, not cold calling. They've contacted us for help first. Each day I have a long ass list and want to get through it as fast as possible, so shorter phone calls are best. So when someone starts a conversation with an emphasized desire to keep things short, I already know I won't like them, because that's code for "I'm going to tell you my life story and I won't take a single breath throughout," or something like that. Story 10. I was the only woman at my last job, and I was second in seniority on our little crew. I did almost all of the training of the new people. All the younger guys loved me because I was like a mom to the crew, always had snacks, and would always listen when they were having a problem or whatever. My biggest problems were usually with guys in their mid-30s. In the morning meeting, the bosses told everyone their job assignments. As we were walking out of the shop, he said, "Yeah, like I'm gonna listen to some snot-nosed 24-year-old chick," to one of the older guys, and the older one looked at him with obvious nervousness in his eyes. And if I were you, I wouldn't piss her off. We will always like her more than we will ever like you. And he was an absolute dick to work with and never listened to anybody except for the managers. Lasted about 3 weeks. Still dislike that guy. My favorite was when my husband and I were working together for a bit. He worked there before and we needed help, so he came in on days off to lend a hand. And the one guy I was having issues with at the time said I was a huge bitch. He didn't understand why they didn't just fire me aside from my tits, thinking this new guy would be his friend. At the end of the day, when the entire crew was filling out time cards, he looks at the guy and thanked him for telling me all day how bad my wife is. Unfortunately, there are a lot of harassment cases we may run into today. You could never meet Albert Einstein, nor had him clap your breasts. It can happen for a woman to be the only one in a workplace with dozens of men, and casual sexual harassment that apparently sounds made up to people who've never experienced the bullshit. Story 11. Freshman year of college, a person in my dorm was also in all of my classes. I went up to her after the last class and remarked how we were in all of the same classes, and that maybe we could hang out sometimes to get to know each other. The program we were in was also very small. There were about 8 of us in that major in the entire university of about 15,000 people. This was our first interaction. She then said, and I quote, "Hard pass. You seem like the sort of person who I just don't like. You know your personality is trash." She then proceeded to damage my property in the "from which I caught her red-handed" doing. She then reported me for racism after I complained to the RA about what she had done, because obviously it was profiling that made me think it was her, and not the fact that I legitimately saw her do it. She also later screamed at me to shut up while I was in the shared lounge having a conversation with a couple of friends, not concerning her in any way, about math homework, also not like I was spewing some kind of racist vitriol or something. I then complained to the RA again, and she reported me again for which is hilarious since I'm gay. Thankfully, I had witnesses to both events who backed me up. She did this to everyone on the floor and got us all in trouble, which then started a little bit of a vendetta against her and the RA, who was her friend and was filing her bogus complaints. We all, 43 of us, signed a collective complaint about her behavior and the behavior of our RA and the building coordinator, and after dealing with the politics of the university, got her removed from the floor. The RA and building coordination fired her and got her blacklisted from becoming an RA. I'd say she was probably looking in a mirror when she said that bit about my personality being trash. Story 12. One of my partner's childhood friends, Tom. We spent a long weekend in a big city near their hometown for my birthday and went out for drinks. I wanted to meet my partner's oldest friends. Well, Tom was late, and when he showed up, he immediately just gave me a not so great vibe. I don't remember what he said the first minute, but he was bragging about his wife's engagement ring and showing pictures later that night. He also invited completely random people over to our table to socialize and ruined any interest I had in getting to know him. None of these things are terrible if he were someone that likes getting to know strangers and is super in love with his wife. Instead, he is very materialistic and likes to show off. Story 13. I have a literal opposite story to this prompt. I had some friends at work, ate lunch with them a lot, and hung out after work sometimes. One of them was much more outgoing and willing to talk to other folks at the company than I was, despite how many more years I had been there. She invited some random guy to our lunch one day, and I, who was always hesitant with change, was a bit reluctant. But whatever, it's not like I can control who she invites. The guy showed up, and a bit of awkward conversation ensues, typical of a new person trying to test the waters in an established group, but he really went for it, and talked about how the perfect job for him would be to shave his feet and sell pictures on Snapchat or OF, and make loads of money, because who would know if they only saw their feet. I guess it was funny, looking back on it, but this was the first time I ever met the guy, and it was while we were at work, so it was a bit of a shock, and I definitely came out of that first meeting with a negative opinion of the dude. Cut to a few months later, and every time we've happened to hang out since then, and yeah, the guy is a good dude, super chill, often goes with the flow, and you know, just a good dude in general. If we ever end up at the same party, I find myself hanging out with the guy because he's cool, willing to put himself out there, as I should have joked judge from that first conversation. It was just a weird first impression. But when hasn't that happened to you when you try to fit in with a random group of people? Made me more patient and more open to meeting new folks and giving them multiple chances to make an impression on me. I think mostly that a woman will finally get to a place where she feels comfortable and knows that others like and accept her only when you make her feel that way. Hence, she won't feel like she has to just talk nonstop, trying to find something to talk about that people would want to listen to or engage in. As far as I am concerned, it's more about how people treat each other regardless of being male or female. Just be nice to the one you admire. Story 14. When I was an intern in 2017, I used to carpool in a packed car of other interns, mixed gender group. The first day, this girl asked the whole car, but she's only directing it to the guys, "Do you think Kendall or Kylie is hotter?" Absolute silence for several minutes. Edit. No, celebrity gossip isn't a moral failing, but it was a super awkward question because when stuff crosses over into a conversation of physical attractiveness with a bunch of new coworkers, it's uncomfortable. Also, in my case, small talk with this girl was always awkward, and we never got along in the 6-month internship. She also ended up being really rude and catty sometimes. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also, don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.